Welcome to Missed Opportunities for Good, the podcast where we open up the space to have conversations about trends and campaigns at the intersection of marketing, advertising, and impact.
Hi, I'm Alana Ficalora.
Hey, I'm Steph Belsky.
We're social impact strategists, colleagues, and friends who are on a mission to revolutionize the industry we love.
Listen, today there's a lot of virtue signaling, greenwashing, cause washing, or companies saying nothing out of fear of getting it wrong.
Whether it's a moment or a movement, it still has to be real. It has to be authentic and aligned with the brand, not just performative. It's about the action being taken that goes along with the messaging.
So we're here to highlight who's doing it well, what could be better, and how companies can stop leaving money and the potential for real social change on the table.
Our guest today on Creative Conversations is Alex Prodaniuk. Okay, before we get into your actual bio, we want to jump in and ask you, why do you do what you do without literally telling us what you do?
Well, I grew up a second-generation artist kid, which meant that I was always obsessed with not just form, but function. And I'm also a pretty competitive person. So I really got bit by the startup bug quite early. And that was really fun for a while. And then I discovered that it left you pretty empty on the days when things didn't go well. And there are many because it's high risk, high reward. So I still wanted to move at that pace, but I needed it to mean a little bit more. So then I started looking at values and also aligning myself with other people, other organizations that had similar values and wanted their work to be more than just capitalistic moneyball, which is fun. But doesn't really warm the cockles of your heart on days when you really need it too.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, so I think that finding my way to climate, finding my way to impact work has been incredibly fulfilling. It also comes with a different challenge in that if your values are totally aligned with the work that you're doing, it can be much easier to push yourself past your thresholds, and to have balance requires a different level of paying attention to that throttle, which is an interesting challenge I didn't quite expect, and probably took me 5 to 6 years of the work to actually fully identify.
Yeah. That is so real.
Yeah.
Oh, man, this is going to be such a good conversation. I'm so excited you're here. All right. So now let's actually share what you do. Alex is a furiously hopeful product and design leader who believes in the power of thoughtful business to make change. Her background spans creative direction, strategy, and product development, integral in helping Volta Charging grow from Series B to IPO. Very impressive. Alex is now the founder of Canary's Revenge, the creative agency with a vendetta that to make things that matter to more people. And she's the president of Choice Dudes, a nonprofit aimed at leveraging comedy to empower men in the fight for reproductive freedom.
You know, just a casual day, talking to someone who's done thing.
You're clearly not idealistic and hoping for good stuff at all.
The world needs more Alexes. That's what I know. Welcome to Miss Opportunities for Good.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
And we're excited to have you here. Now let's get to know you a bit better.
So, Alex, the first question we always ask all of our guests is, what first drew you to impact work?
Well, other than the empty feeling after bad days.
Right, right. I was gonna say,
Um,
you sort of alluded to it already, but,
it's a funny story because Volta charging came to me. I had been looking for something with more meaning, more purpose.
yeah.
And it came to me largely because I had added this funny little blurb to my CV that was out on various platforms. And it said something like sandcastle builder, relentless optimist, creative director, lover of old high maintenance cars. It was sort of like nothing to do with anything, not like where I'm trying to go in 5 years, but I felt like it was a good smattering of who I was at that point. And the founder of Volta actually came to that work because he had restored cars all through childhood and all through college and thought that he was going to really work in this high-end automotive space, $1 million vintage restorations. And when he got deeper in, discovered that these things were not as beautiful and pristine and well crafted as he had been led to, that there was some shady stuff happening. So if he was going to have to deal with that sort of thing going on, he wanted to be a part of the future rather than the past. So he saw this little blurb of mine and was like, well, if I'm comparing creative director to creative director, this is a person who at least understands a love for objects, a love for idealism, and we might have something in common. And I walked into an incredibly raw space. It was one of the weirdest interviews of my life. It got interrupted by a investor call. But as I met this leadership team, they couldn't have been more different at that point. There were people who were very well polished. There were people who didn't need to work anymore. There were people who were clearly barely scraping by, but just really believed in this thing. But what they all had in common is that they saw something in the power of business to create change where maybe historically government would have done it.
Sure.
And I couldn't let it go. It was less money than I was being offered elsewhere, but I just knew it was a place that could create things. And I think once you move in a culture like that, it gets really hard to do anything else. And when you see it can work better, and yes, it's harder and it requires more thoughtfulness,
Yeah.
but what is the point of all of it if we aren't trying for that extra level? Almost sticking that landing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. I haven't heard that whole story from you. I love that so much. It's such an interesting knot where you think the conversation of restoring old cars is going to go, especially
Yeah.
when you're married to my husband, who was like, save the manual. And I have to counteract all of his gas guzzling.
Yeah.
But he thinks having the old car is actually better for the planet and all of it. So
I mean, even our founder in this startup was constantly taking vintage cars and converting them to electric. And then he'd say, this is so much more efficient than my Tesla
Yeah.
because you're using mostly found old existing hard materials, right?
That's so brilliant.
It's a little bit less practical. They don't go as far and it takes a lot of work. And unless you can do it yourself, it's really expensive. But it is,
yep.
it is an interesting way to sort of flip things on its head. And your husband has a point. The problem is just the gas. But I still have an ice. I still have an ice Alfa Romeo that only gets to go out on sunny days in Pacifica, which is not often. But there's something to be said.
Yes.
I love that blurb made it onto your portfolio site as well, because it's just so indicative of who you are and how you operate. And I just love that you wear it on your sleeve. And that's
what it's now advice I give to various folks that are trying to find their next thing that'll really resonate with them.
Yeah.
It's spend some time figuring out who you are and what delights you and find a way to show that. because it's not going to be for everyone, but the people it's going to be from are really going to get you.
Yeah.
And that's for you, what you want.
Yeah.
Such good advice.
Find that match up front. I think you've already alluded to this, and maybe it's one of many, but what issue area are you most passionate about? Or issue areas? You could say more than one.
Yeah.
I think this has evolved in the last couple of years. I used to be a person who I admired but didn't totally understand my biology friends who wanted to go cure cancer, because what's the point of that if we haven't figured out how to live on this planet sustainably? It was like a very clear hierarchy of needs to my mind's eye. After Roe fell, it became a lot more nuanced for me and became very hard for me to just say that, like, climate has to always be number one. And I think part of that is the just incredible injustice of any ruling or lack of civil right that is going to make one segment of a population even more devalued than it has been. And that's true beyond reproductive justice for sure. All these things are intersectional. And for me, it just took that feeling of sliding backward to really be able to see the greater aperture of things and to get much more interested in public health and also all of the various systems that are helping hold these inequities in place.
And there are
climate is so intersectional with all social justice issues.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten more into reproductive justice, it's been one of the most inspiring lenses is to hear people from Sister Song talk, and to them, reproductive justice is having clean air to breathe just as much as it's access to healthcare. It's being able to send their children to schools where they're going to be safe. They're going to come home. It's a much more nuanced perspective, and it makes so much sense.
Mm-hmm. It is all interrelated. And I think it's short-sighted when it's not part of the conversation, or where internal CSR and social impact departments and sustainability departments aren't treating it as such. Because it's a web. And if you don't have all of those pieces, it's like you need people working on every area, because otherwise how will we ever truly move forward? And we all need to be lifted up to go together.
Yeah. And it's through our connection to each other that we actually find ways to do that. And those connections happen in a myriad of points.
1000%.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing right now, right here in real time. Alex, what is an impactful project, past or present, that you've worked on that you are really, really proud of? I'm not going to say most proud of, even though that is how we usually phrase this question, but because of your breadth of work, I mean, I'm sure it's difficult to choose what you're most proud of. So,
right.
You want to share?
There's the project that comes to mind, and then there's the character trait. So I think what I'm most proud of is my resilience through the face of a lot of various challenges being thrown at me. The project that is the project I can't stop thinking about. I wake up in the morning thinking about, and I go to bed at night thinking about, is our Choice Dudes project. And part of why I'm proud of that is because it's been an issue that I felt like I had an inkling of a solution to, but I was too scared to do anything about it.
Ooh.
And I would have a conversation with someone, and then we'd think that we'd see like a pathway forward and a way to have a community mindset and to really like call men to the table. Because when Roe fell, all the women around me were devastated and grieving in their own way. But I also had a lot of really great men whisper support into my ear in almost paralysis. It was very clear that they knew this was a big deal, that they knew a lot of people were going to be hurt because of this.
Yeah.
And that they wanted to be a part of the solution, but they didn't know enough. And they didn't feel invited to be a part of that solution. Throughout history, many reproductive justice movements, rights to abortion, restoration, have been led by women. And I think that's really important. It's also very indicative in American culture that if we leave men behind, we're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
So it was actually through almost 2 years of trying not to start this project that I finally came to a point where I realized it wasn't about me, and pieces of it may be uncomfortable or dangerous, and we may mess up. But nobody was coming to save us, so we had to try. And it's through getting to engage with some really brilliant strategists and some wonderful producers and some great writers that we have started building something that begins to be an answer to that. And it's not done. It's in the first inning. But we're thinking about, how do you make this fun and engaging? How do you make it empowering? And how do you do it in a way that is completely unlike the way a bunch of other groups are doing it? Because I think there's a lot of answers for women in this moment. I don't know, but a lot.
Sure.
So how can we increase that power? And I'm proud of the fact that I got off the couch and stopped worrying about what could happen if I tried, even more than the work, because I think a lot of us stop there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's taking that first step.
Oh, just taking that in for a minute, because it's so real. Like, everybody is an armchair expert, and then nobody's brave enough to actually get up off the couch, like you said.
Yeah.
And especially in moments when we feel helpless and when we feel like things are out of our control and authority is taking over, that's when it's like, no, actually, I can do something about this. I do have agency. I physically have my own agency, but I also have my own agency. See what I did there? Thanks. That's why I get paid the big bucks. But yeah, I'm just taking that in, and I know you are taking it in too, about like how you just need to get up off the damn couch and do something, and just kudos to putting it out there. And both you and Alana are working so hard on this project, and it's just so inspiring. So impressed. Well, and it's getting off the couch the first time, but then doing it again and again and again, and knowing that there might be somebody more qualified. There might be somebody with a more elegant pathway through not ruffling feathers and still being successful. Yeah.
But that actually doesn't matter, because it's not about you. I was on one of these Zoom calls where Glennon Doyle was speaking months ago, and she said something that just really shook me to my core about how when she started doing social justice work, she thought that she was going to get a lot of praise. And it didn't happen. People were very mad. So she thought, oh, she just needed to tweak her messaging, and then people would like her for it.
It's amazing.
And it took a few times out for her to realize that it's actually not about you. And in fact, when you're doing it right, you're mostly going to make people mad because you're trying to change the status quo. And that it's something that white women in particular struggle with. because we tend to want to fit within a narrow path in which we have the closest perceived proximity to power and ruffle those feathers the least. And it just made me sob because it was so relevant to the moments in which I haven't stood up and continued to move. So this project, I think, is one of the most powerful things because it's being comfortable with the fact that you're being unpopular and that you're going to mess up. And that's a part of the practice, is finding ways to repair when you do.
Well, and it's so smart too, because like using comedy, right, as the vehicle for this, comedy is at its best a truth serum and a way that you can educate, advocate, and convey really important information, and do it through the lens of, this is funny as hell.
Totally.
And that's everything.
Yeah, this is one of those moments where actually my first approach to this was incredibly heavy-handed and probably wouldn't have done more than one of those commercials that makes you maybe cry once and you never think about it again. It is through bringing people in who are even smarter than myself that we got to a better solution of including comedy. And then you start looking at the research, and comedy makes people feel less pain. It makes them more open to new ideas. It makes them more likely to remember something. And those are all really powerful things in the moment that we're in, where a lot of people are running around quite fearful of our future, whatever that means to them. So it's a tall ask to ask them to take on another heavy issue, especially if it's maybe not as personal to them because they're one step removed. Most men are not going to have the ability to miscarry and be bleeding out and need a life-saving abortion. It's just not their first person reality. So
Yeah.
you got to do something to bridge that gap.
Yep. I also want to step back to the getting off the couch bit and say that not only did you step off the couch, but also your ability to bring people along with you and keep people motivated and inspire others to join in the fight, I think is really powerful. And so it does make you the right person to be doing it because you're able to keep the train moving. It's not just, sauntering between bases. You're on a journey and we're getting on board with you and we're going. So just want to recognize that.
I really appreciate that. It's something that I'll write down and reread on a rough day when I want to go back to that sofa.
Nope, you're not allowed to. Sofa's for you unless it's on the train. Yes.
That is the best way to relax on a train.
One day that might be her preferred mode of transportation anyways to get back across the U.S. We might be going back there. So, hey.
We'll see, won't we?
Maybe.
On that note, maybe related or not, what would you say is the biggest challenge you're facing right now?
I think the biggest challenge I'm facing right now is the biggest challenge everybody is facing right now. This moment feels more uncertain than ever. I know that each generation has a version of this, and yet we have persisted thus far. So it might not be as big as we feel like it is, but regardless of the lens you want to take, there is so much change. There is so much uncertainty. There is a lot of different cultural forces pulling against each other. And how do you keep showing up with positivity that's not fake when there's so much fear? And how do you invite your fear to the table and make sure it doesn't ruin the party? Because if you don't invite it, it will ruin the party. But how are you being mindful about that? And I don't have any silver bullets about that. It's something that when I have my weekly coffee with one of my entrepreneurial confidants, we both sort of find a new way to ask that question is how do you not only meet your own fear and keep moving forward, but also be empathetic of others so that they can keep moving forward.
Whew. Just dropping all of the goodness right now, Alex. This was great. I first of all, I need to know who this entrepreneur friend of yours is as well, because I feel like you two should start a podcast because we could all use little tips and tricks on how to stay positive and optimistic and feel good in the work that we're doing right now, and how to bring there's so many good quotables in here, like how to bring your fear to the party, bring it to the table, bring it to the party.
The hardest
bring
thing
your
to
fear
do.
everywhere.
I mean, it's coming.
Oh, it's here. It's here. Existential dread. There. We're there.
I would love to know Priya Parker's response to that. Queen of bringing people together and throwing parties. Like, tell us, Priya. What is the answer?
Oh.
Okay, I have a totally not related question.
Go for
I'm
it.
throwing a spinball in there just because I'm curious and I've been thinking about this. What would your ideal project be?
Oh. So I came to this work through visual design, creativity, but the piece that actually keeps me moving forward is when you combine that with culture, with social psychology, with strategy, and really think about like, is there a way to get a triple win? So there isn't one project that I'm dying to do, but I just light up anytime I get to work with a brand that has a mission and isn't afraid to take the time to be really disciplined about how they're going to bring that communication strategy forward. I feel like, especially in climate, our communication strategies are often very defensive. It starts with a lot of proving why we're good. Everything else is sold through emotion. How do we get to a place where folks in the impact space, especially around climate, are really good at tapping into that emotion first and then walking the walk and proving it after they come out with that offensive?
Yes.
I love that.
So anytime I get to work with a client that is brave enough to do that,
Yeah.
I am
The
over the
counter to
moon.
that fear, the bravery.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you don't talk about a worst case scenario, right? It just means building a team where you can have those really vulnerable conversations and find the best pathway forward for that business.
Fantastic. All right. Well, before we jump into the campaign that you've brought us today, we're going to quickly review our criteria for both you, Alex, and also for our listeners. So the first thing we always look at is alignment.
Next is partnerships,
Call to action and transparency.
engagement,
And lastly, optimization and amplification.
So on that note, Alex, can you please tell us a little bit about the campaign that you brought to us today, whether you're saying you believe they're doing it well or not well, and give us a quick summary of the creative associated with the campaign?
Yeah. The campaign I haven't been able to let go of for the last year is the He Gets Us campaign.
Yes.
And my husband's a big football guy. And what you see when you're watching a football game is a lot of commercials about how you're going to be tougher, faster, stronger, or chicken wings, right?
Yes.
There's not
Some mixed messaging,
There's
really.
not, I feel, if that doesn't work, just eat the chicken wings.
100%. Or drink the beer and wish it all away. It's fine.
There
Yeah.
you go.
But with the He Gets Us campaign, first you've got often these start out with a black and white video reel.
Yeah.
They're very inclusive messaging. Lately, they've been running a ton about how immigrants are not unlike us. In fact, Jesus was an immigrant. And to play that in a space that is supposed to be somewhat apolitical, but often leans a bit conservative, often leans a bit religious. And by religious, I mean Christian, is an interesting intersection of ideas that we might think are, before you get to the end of the campaign, more coastal, more liberal, maybe a little lefty snowflake, depending on how you frame liberal and coastal. And then you get to the end, and it's a purely modern Christian message, but one that is inclusive. And part of why I can't let this go is because it's unlike any of the other pieces of content in those segments. And the other piece is, I think that there are actually really few moments where there is a reaching across cultures in this way. And though it's been running for a year or two, it's no less relevant. In fact, it feels more relevant. And then you sort of dig behind, well, this came out of one of the big agencies, of course, right?
It did.
No. Came out of a pretty small agency. And it's not sponsored by a brand. But is it a net positive on society? Like, that's where I think we can have a really interesting debate, because there is not a lot of transparency about the money that is going in to fund these organizations. And there is some crossover with what you can find with a lot of considerably less inclusive legislation.
Interesting. So I'm just going to call it out.
Please.
So I love that you brought us this campaign. And as two Jewish women, one of whom is married to a rabbi, when I saw this campaign, I was like, okay, like, I need to know what this is. I remember the first time seeing it on TV, and I was like, wow, this is really good. And they're talking about, like, you know, there's gun violence. Like, is this an anti-gun situation? Is this a pro-immigration? Is this, like, what is happening here? And then at the end, it was like, Jesus. Then I was like, okay, I cannot roll my eyes hard. But also, like, kudos to putting this out there to whoever got off the couch, because it is compelling, and it does kind of bring in that idealisticness of it all. And yeah, I know you're just chopping at the bit to say something.
I feel like I found this article that you must have been talking about, Alex. Because I don't know what Scripps News is, but as I'm scrolling through and it's talking about the conflicting information in terms of who is funding these spots and what they are also behind.
Yeah.
Ironically, given our current conversation, the Servant Foundation has donated to Alliance Defending Freedom, which was a conservative legal group that helped overturn Roe.
Yeah.
But obviously it calls
And
out
then
Hobby Lobby.
isn't Hobby Lobby a part of this too? Yeah.
Their personal family money.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now it's under and then the fact that it switched organizations as well of who's behind it. And then
Right.
I mean, I'm sure there's some story there, but it's very interesting.
It's very interesting. What I think is undeniable about it is it taps emotion first.
Yes.
And not every impact campaign aims to do that, but not everyone does. And they're doing that incredibly effectively. Whether or not they are building the partnerships or coalition to actually make good on the values they are preaching with this framing is a big question.
And especially, oh, yeah, go for it.
But no, I was just going to say that it's interesting to, I mean, there's so much that like practice what you preach, but it's also interesting if you're not practicing those values to even be funding something that is preaching these values. If you're not practicing them, it's not like you're trying to say, my brand is good. We're going to tell you to be good humans and look at each other as equals and all of that. There's not even a clear association. So it's like, it's almost like somebody has split personalities.
I mean, the very cynical read could be, how do you bring in more dollars and more following of a younger generation who is going to expect a different tone of voice? And can you lure them with that, right? Like that's the cynical read of like, oh, these people like inclusion or DEI or whatever. Let's find a way to do that and get them in this group so that the machine of money, frankly, keeps running. And yet we're in a moment where it feels like communities are becoming more fragmented. And we do really struggle to have conversations with people with different beliefs than us. And there is something nice about hearing anybody talk positive light and how we could bridge the gap and how you can still go to dinner with somebody who has different political beliefs with you.
Yeah.
And that may be a little unpopular right now. However, I don't know how we grow unless we have those kinds of conversations.
Yeah. There's an interesting nonprofit, actually. It's called Unify America. And it was started by a friend of mine in Chicago, actually, Harry Gottlieb, who is on a mission to do exactly that, to have conversations with people that share different beliefs and different ideologies and different values, and to be able to have conversations and find common ground and realize that, we do all have empathy, maybe at our core. And
most of us, yes, I agree.
let's hope so.
Need to find it again. It's probably
Right.
there deep down.
Right. And also it's so interesting to think that the people that are putting out this messaging so adamantly believe in what they're doing is right and good. And that everybody else that does not share that belief is in the wrong. And so it's just indicative of how divided we are and how we really need to find the space to understand each other more.
Yeah.
And to listen.
It's also such a clear example of how the same story can be told to divide or bring people together.
Yeah.
Because, they're not having to twist things in order to make it sound like an inclusion message, which really makes one think about how we do share different realities from the people that we're walking alongside with, and how do you rectify that? And in the advertising space, it's incredibly complicated because the whole goal is to get everybody to feel the same thing as much as you can.
That's right. Wild.
Yeah.
I'm still so confused by why these exist at the same time. Ultimately, I still don't get what the point is. Like, what's driving them to put the message out and how
Because, Alana,
it translates.
if you
but
find
sorry,
if you find religion, then obviously your world will just be better and make more sense.
no, but it is interesting in the sense that there has been this step back away from religion, and that's a huge issue across all religious communities in a lot of ways, right? So there is that piece to it. But at the same time, if you're usually looking at advertising as like the return on investment, what is their ultimate goal, and how are they able to know, like, are more people joining church and now they think they've done a great job? What shift in people's behavior or mindset are they actually looking for as an outcome to this is the part that I'm still stuck on, which is maybe not the point at all, but like I just can't get past this for some reason.
I mean, I would have to guess it's to get a younger demographic or maybe even a more modern demographic of people to still buy into the institution. Whether that's through showing up physically in church or whether or not that's to actually donating to one of these, I'm hesitating to call them nonprofits, but they are technically nonprofits. So the nonprofits are foundations that are listed here. So I wouldn't say that the three of us are the target market because we're not running out to do either of those things.
Right.
But if we aren't nauseous when we hear that message, maybe we're less judgmental of the friend who does. I don't know. It's a question.
Yeah.
Mm.
It is certainly an awareness campaign. I will say that.
Yeah. I mean, it's not cheap. They're spending a lot of money on it, right? So
Oh,
that's why I just think
yeah.
it's so interesting.
No,
And let's be honest, the religion of football is the religion of America.
yeah. Beer, football, and God, right?
And chicken wings.
And chicken wings. Well, that goes with the beer.
We need a snack.
This episode brought to you by Buffalo Wild Wing.
Yeah, it looks like they've spent over $100 million on this campaign.
God,
I'm sure even more than that for Super Bowl spots aren't cheap, and if it's been running during that valley,
Right.
It's got to be even more than that, no?
I mean, talk about follow through
Over a couple of years,
Like
that's crazy.
at least 2 years this campaign's been running.
I also guess if your family's worth $15.2 billion, that $100 million is, just a drop in the bucket anyway. So
Sure. Chump change.
Yeah, from some reports, it's in the ballpark of 100 million. For other reports, it looks like it's up to $1 billion. So I think probably depends on how you slice the time scale and also the foundations or organizations behind it.
Yeah, and probably media buy and things like that.
I'm just we've hit most of our rubric, I guess, in terms of what we look for and what we analyze. But I'm just laughing at employee engagement.
Yeah. And how do you measure that, right? Because it's not a follow through on purchase. Maybe it is how many people hit that website. And there's a conversion rate and there's a donation rate to the website.
Sure.
Where does the website actually send you? I was also trying to poke around on the actual website to see, where they go. And they do seem to have community meetups and things like that. And it almost makes you wonder, what the intentions ultimately of those are. And if it is, to your point, the way to bring people in, but then to shift the messaging after they're already involved and bought into whatever it is, especially if you're reaching for a younger audience and know how disassociated so many people are from everything. Is it a way to build community, but then have a shift in message? Or is it truly about what the message on the surface seems to be and about, equality and us all being here for each other and all of that? It's really hard to tell.
Yeah, it's really interesting. They have an FAQ on the He Gets Us site, right? And they're claiming that they're just trying to revive the beauty of the story of Jesus. They're not trying to get people back in church, and that Jesus loves gay people, which is great that they say that publicly. As far as like rating transparency, when you look at who's funding this, then that gets pretty murky.
Yeah. And that's why this is so confusing. Many groups in Los Angeles. Oh, well, they have a presence, in case anybody was wondering. It just seems like it's still the time that people would be at church. It's very, yeah.
It's very church-like.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but also interesting because even so, with all of that, they're still not actually actively even collecting donations or sending people to other nonprofits, or how they're distributing information through the site is like, read about Jesus, sign up for our newsletter and videos.
And also, like in the idea of thinking that it's, oh, this is happening during a time when church would be happening. That's their target audience, right? Is people that are not in church, that do not want to be affiliated, who are, and ironically, my husband runs a similar organization here in Metro Detroit where, like, we tap into unaffiliated Jews and people who are Jewish and people who just like hanging out with Jews, but also families who are not affiliated. Like, some are affiliated with synagogues, but some are not. And then this is their time to introduce Judaism into their life in just like a small snippet of a way of a community gathering. And so it's fascinating to look at this campaign now from that perspective of, okay, yeah, so that's who they're targeting. They're targeting folks who would not be in church at that time and who are looking to gather in community and to find that human connection. And so reel them in.
Well, and for some people, Sunday watching football may be when they feel most in community.
Yes.
And most aligned with their family members or their neighbors, etc. So you're sort of coasting off of that goodwill, much like we had talked previously about comedy, is like whenever you've got somebody into that safe space, they're going to be a little bit more likely to hear what you're pushing them on.
Entirely.
Yeah. Yeah. Their article section is also kind of interesting in the sense that, I mean, I know the messaging piece of it's still a bit confusing and what's real and what's not. The topics you can search through range from how do you talk to your neighbors? Who do you consider a neighbor? Why are we so bad at living out traits we care most about? It's interesting because they seem positively minded in terms of creating a better community. A little too much on the foot washing. I'm not sure what's going on there. In a lot of what we talk about like the resources that, brands put out in a sort of an impact campaign or something like that, and giving people tools to do the work on their own, theoretically or whatever. Like, they're kind of doing that. How effective or how aligned it is with their values to be determined without going in and like actually reading all of these things. But it's kind of interesting to take the spin they're putting on it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
For providing.
Love that, Alana. Yeah.
I like that a lot as well. Although in some places, talking to your neighbor is a revolutionary act.
Mm. Also true. Also true.
Yes, and
Hi, Michigan
Yeah.
here.
Amazing.
Well, I think we've done it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Alex, for joining us today, for bringing us something we've never thought about looking at. So I think looking at this piece of creative and what's behind it, I think really was eye-opening in the sense I don't think I ever would have thought to look at this campaign in this way. So I appreciate you bringing us something totally different that you also just don't see talked about, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not, it kind of exists and everyone kind of saw it in the Super Bowl, but as somebody who never watches TV anymore, thanks to my 4-year-old, I am sometimes out of the loop on what is being played on programs that I used to watch all the time. And so it's interesting that this is actually weirdly becoming a piece of culture when it's being shown all the time. And so that is having some sort of an impact on people. So what can we learn from that? And what can you take away from that that maybe is or isn't working? And how can that be integrated into other things? It's like, it's important to consider. So thank you for that. Where can we direct folks to learn more about you and your work?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn at Alex Prodaniuk. You can also take a look at Canary's Revenge at canariesrevenge.com. That's apostrophe S with a Y, not multiple canaries. We are the revenge, not the canary.
And we'll include links in the show notes as well.
Great.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And if you're so inclined, check out choicedude.org. We're
Hell
just at
yeah.
the beginning of this journey, but I'm really excited to see where it takes us.
Amazing.
Yes.
And follow Frankie Beans.
Follow Frankie Beans on TikTok, who is our first choice dude.
Someone's got to be the first.
Yeah. And if you really want to get into it, we sell merch too.
Hey.
Can't help myself.
There we go.
Okay, moving on.
We will definitely have all the link to all the things in the show notes. So thank you so, so much, Alex, for joining us and helping us shine a light and learn from those who are doing well and reduce the missed opportunities for good.
I was just going to say thank you both. These are the kinds of conversations that I want to be having. So appreciate the in-depth questions.
Of course, I love it. I think we need more of these conversations to truly change the industry and change our world. So, yes.
One
And on that
conversation at a
note,
time.
yeah, we want to hear from you, our listeners. Let us know what campaigns you're seeing that are doing it well, who you would like to see us interview so we can continue having these conversations, and what campaigns you would like us to audit.
And don't forget to subscribe. So thank you for joining us on our mission to revolutionize the industry that we love.
Missed Opportunities for Good is a production of Aligned for Impact and Love of Good.
And we're out.